present the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget for your review and consideration. Tonight, we'd like to give a brief presentation to go over some of the highlights of the proposed budget. No decisions have to be made tonight. This is just an overview as we prepare for the budget hearings in September. I'll be going over the budget overview with the highlights of the revenues and expenditures, and then we'll hand it off to the city, assistant city managers for departmental reviews, and then Mike will give a summary of the wrap up. The budget is in a fund structure. So we have the general fund, which is the city's primary operating fund. It pays for the city's basic services, programs, and daily operations of the city. We have our special revenue funds, which consists of the CRA, the long T, which is local option gas tax, law enforcement grants and impact fees. Then we have our enterprise funds that are run like businesses, that are charges for services. Those are water and sewer, stormwater, solid waste, and trailer city. And then finally our fiduciary funds, which are our pension funds. The city's fiscal year 2022 proposed budget for the whole city is $88 million. $47 million is allocated towards the general fund, $12 million for the special revenue funds, $2 million for debt service, $22 million for enterprise funds, and $5 million for fiduciary funds. Tonight we'll be concentrating mostly on the general fund and enterprise funds for our high level. The projected revenues for fiscal year 2022 for our enterprise funds are projected to come in at $22.8 million, with the lion's share coming from the utilities funds. Those are our water and wastewater, which are projected to come in at $14.7 million, followed by solid waste at 5.6 and stormwater at 2.2 million. The general fund revenues are projected at $45.79 million for next fiscal year. The sources of revenues for our general fund are taxes at $25.5 million, permits, fees, and special assessments at $5 million, our intergovernmental revenues, which are state sharing revenues, at $9.2 million, and charges for services at $5.3 million. The largest source of revenue for the general fund are taxes, and those are largely made up of the ad valorem taxes, which is our property taxes. Those are estimated to come in at $19 million, and then we also have our service taxes at $6.2 million for next fiscal year. The ad valorem taxable value has increased by 7.5%. Those values do come from our property appraiser at Orange County. And with that, staff is recommending that we keep the millage rate flat at 4.5 mils. This equates to approximately $19 million for fiscal year 2022, which is an increase of $1.3 million next fiscal year. As you can see here, over the last 5 years, our tax value has increased year over year for ad valorem. That's because of the increase in property values and also the additional construction for new businesses and new residential. And our intergovernmental services, those are our state revenue sharing, our house and sales tax, and our state revenue sharing. They make up 20% of the general fund revenue. Those are budgeted to come in at $9.2 million next fiscal year. And our house and sales tax revenue is heavily dependent on the economy. As you can see, before COVID, in 2018 and 2019, we were hitting $7.4 million in revenue. COVID hit in March of 2020, and our revenue started to decline in this category. The economy is starting to boost back up. Businesses are opening up. People are traveling again. Disney's back up to full capacity. So we are seeing those revenues increase. And the state provides estimates for this revenue source. And they're estimating that the city of Winter Garden will receive $6.6 million next fiscal year.
And if I just may interject for you all, we receive our shared revenues not based on how much sales tax dollars reflect in Winter Garden. It's based on a statewide sales tax. We get our share based on population, so it's no reflection of our economy. It's the economy of the state as a whole.
Correct. Yep. And the same with the next slide too for our state revenue sharing. This actually also comes from the state, and they're projecting that the city will receive $2.16 million in state revenue sharing revenue for next fiscal year, which is an increase of $640,000. For the proposed expenditure budgets, we have asked our departments to keep their operating budgets status quo, except for areas of significant need for next year. We've also included a proposed 3% cost of living increase for our employees. We have added new positions only when justified by service demand, and new capital projects were considered based on need and funding availability. The general fund personnel and operating expenditures are budgeted at $39 million next fiscal year. And I like to show this pie graph because it shows the allocation of where those funds are going. And as you can see, over 50% are allocated to public safety for fire and police. We have $6 million for general fund, or general government, and $4.5 million for our culture and recreation. We've also budgeted for $4.5 million of capital projects for our general fund. We have $1.4 million set aside for culture and recreation, $1.5 million for fire and police, and $600,000 for our streets. And now I'll turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Frank Gilbert, to talk about administrative services.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this tonight and give some of the information for our budget. Just want to go over a couple of different things with you. And is this an enter? Just an error. Just an error? Okay. Thank you. All right. As you can see, the first page, or actually it says page 21 on yours, it says page 2 on mine, is the organizational chart for all the administrative services. And as you can see, it's made up of several different departments. We're going to get to that in just a minute. One of the things I want to point out is the full-time equivalent employees per 1,000 population. As you can see, there's been no significant change for this particular year. I think Mr. Bullock will be adding some comments to that a little later on. The next slide is our full-time equivalent employees, which shows a total for fiscal year 22, 373.5. Page stuck together. All right. The next slide is the citywide staffing. It's the new personnel request. And like I said earlier, currently we have 369.5 full-time equivalent employees. And the proposed budget for fiscal year 22 reflects a net increase of 4 positions, new positions, totaling 373.5 full-time employees. As a result of those certain reclassifications occurred during the current fiscal year during interim budget, and upon approval of the fiscal year 2022 budget, if approved as stated, the addition of 4 new positions and 2 position reclassification would be as follows. Parks Supervisor for Tucker Ranch, a new position. Parks Supervisor, Greenhouse Operations. A project coordinator, which is a reclassified existing events coordinator position that's been vacant since 2017, and a park supervisor for horticulture, which is the reclassified vacant park superintendent position. In administrative services, we have a human resources manager for risk management, and we also, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, and also a mechanic one for fleet services, and Mr. Williams is going to be discussing how some of that is affected by the fleet as far as public services and also our solid waste departments. Okay. Next slide, administrative services is comprised of 3 basic divisions or departments: facilities management, fleet maintenance, and human resources department. Even though this list is not exhaustive, it just gives you a good idea of the core functions of the departments, or the full departments. Okay. The next slide, employment strategies. One of the things that we've talked about before in the past as far as hiring and selection and maybe retaining employees, so we have to retain our competitive edge. We don't want to be the market leader. We don't want to be the highest paid in the local area, but we certainly want to be competitive to be sure we can, attract and retain good employees. We believe our competitive approach to compensation, accompanied by our outstanding benefits package, which we believe to be on the higher end of compensation or benefits packages compared with local employers, makes us a strong competitor for local talent. Some of the key points. Okay. Proposed wage adjustments. As we said earlier, it's going to be proposing 3%, and whatever ends up being approved will be given to the employees at the closest date to the first of the fiscal year. Yes, okay. I'm sorry, I just lost one of these slides. Right back to it. Okay. The proposed 3% is based upon an across-the-board adjustment. It is not a pay adjustment in general. And it's based on the results of a survey, what we call the usual suspects, which I will discuss in a different slide. And the average was 3%. We surveyed 21 agencies or different jurisdictions and ended up with 16 responses, and the average was 3%. Okay. Maintaining competitiveness on our local labor. On the right side here now. Okay. One of the things that we do, we use what's called the usual suspects. In Central Florida, there's numerous cities and counties around us that we use to compare ourselves to as far as pay and benefits. We call them the usual suspects because they're pretty much the ones that we compete with on a regional basis. So we aren't like going all the way to Jacksonville or all the way down to Miami. We're just basically using these local ones because that's the ones we actually compete with. So that's why we call them our usual suspects, because we usually use the same ones pretty much all the time. Okay. Also, I wanted to talk about training and career development. And the COVID-19 has created employment difficulties across the nation. It's become apparent that we need to approach this with a little different angle. And one of the things we want to do is we really want to do what we call, or address some of our challenges. And we want to basically home grow our own work staff. So we want to bring people in who meet our service philosophy, and then ask them, to attend classes or attend training to get certifications, because that's really what we're lacking right now. We can't find the people necessarily that have the full skills we need, and instead we're just trying to bring people in that we can train and put into positions as they achieve their certifications or their licenses, and even their college education. We'll pay for that. We have a very, very lucrative employee reimbursement for tuition. Okay. Sorry, I lost my place on there. Oops, I still did. The last section we're going to talk about today is employment law policies and practices, and that's been a very key thing for us, because during the past several decades, employment law has shifted and mutated to increased demands on HR staff and departments, and not staying abreast of those changes can create workplace difficulties for an employer. The risk management function is seeing an increase in activity due to my opinion, proliferation of attorney ads, advocating lawsuits, etc., causing the city to utilize its resources in unique ways. One example are the recent website accessibility lawsuits I'm sure you all have read about and know about, filed under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Fortunately, the city utilizes public risk management for liability and workers' compensation purposes. They provide consulting, legal and technical consulting, and for any ADA actions filed against the city or any of its departments. Okay, I apologize. Right before the meeting, I took a pill for my allergies, and it's kind of making me a little sick. Okay. And I believe that's pretty much it for administrative services underneath human resources. I believe we're going to do the other two divisions on a different night. So with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation and turn it over to Mr. Williams, the City Manager for Public Services.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight I'm going to do a presentation on public services major initiatives. We're going to start down with two of our general fund divisions. In the cemetery, we kicked off the design earlier this year, and this is the #1 priority for us to get completed. We were hoping to achieve 2,000 burial plots along with 2,000 ditches, with construction to begin around June 2022. We also propose to install some 84 niche columbariums in section 1, 2, and 3, and extend some irrigation lines down to sections 24 and 25. The area of expansion is south of Lake Butler and east of Bradley Park in the highlighted red area there. We're going to do our best to preserve the eastern edge with heavy landscaping, and that's the area we've identified for the most of our columbarium and niches. And then we'll certainly plat the roads. We'll be bringing some concepts back for your approval as soon as they are received. Over in our streets division, we have a couple priority projects there. One being Plant Street full depth reclamation at Story and Lakeview. We've attempted to fix this area twice, and through a traditional milling process, we mill about 1.5 inches, only to find out that about 6 inches below, we've got some old asphalt that shears off when the heavy trucks are coming through the corner and breaking there, which is causing that pavement to slide. We've also got the Marsh Road traffic calming improvements, and you probably have seen the golf cart zone on Plant Street. I think we're going to propose coming in the future meeting some expanding of that zone to make it more visibly identifiable, I guess, if you will. Included some pictures here of the golf cart zone, an example of some traffic calming that's used in some heavy landscaping along the edge of the road to kind of narrow the road, and also up the Plant Street, the asphalt sliding. On to our special revenue fund, general impact fee, and local option gas tax. One of the priority all of them are priority projects, but we're placing a heavy emphasis on the completion of the Village Street design. I think Mike has informed you that we have received 100% plans. We have reviewed them, sent them back for some revisions. We then meet with the design engineer today and have put a pretty tight deadline on them and resubmitting those plans so we can move toward bid phase around January of 2022, with completion of that phase around May of 22, and hopefully with construction beginning in June of 2022. Marsh Road improvements and roundabout. We've been promised that the design will be complete by September of 2021. We've been held up a little bit by the Water Management District and working out the stormwater for that project, and we have finally submitted a package that I think will satisfy what they're hoping to achieve with the drainage system. We anticipate the bid phase to be complete around December of 2021 and starting construction in March of 2022.
John, that's the one that's in front of where the new fire station is going to be.
That's
and
right.
The neighborhood always escapes me. Hickory Hammer. Thank you.
Avalon Road intersection improvements, we anticipate that design being complete by January of 2022, along with bid phase being complete around June 2022, and hopefully starting construction there of 2022. We also have Carter Road intersection improvements that's yet to be designed, and we anticipate kicking that process off at that same time. And obviously, we're going to continue forward with our citywide street resurfacing program. Here's a snapshot of the Village Street project from Plant Street looking south to the next roundabout Smith, and obviously Story Road. This is the Marsh Road project, which includes some intersection improvements at Avalon and Marsh with southbound traffic or southbound turning lane extension, and then we're going to have some combination through and dedicated through lanes, which will certainly address any of the ongoing traffic situations that currently exist there today as a result of the use of lanes off 429. We have a new roundabout, obviously planning at Johns Lake overlooking the transitions back down to the existing segment road that's already out there. This is the picture concept plan of the Avalon intersections, which includes some dedicated turn lanes and some combination turn and through lanes as well. And then I've got some 3 pictures of the existing conditions for the street resurfacing. We're looking at doing Westfield Lakes, Forest Cross Phase 1, West Bay Street, Tildenville School Road, Daniels Crossing Phase 1. We did a significant portion of Daniels Road this year, so this phase is going to be from the Turnpike to about Roper, Oak Glen, Kings Bay, Horizon Oaks, and that's it for the street resurfacing and the general fund and the local option gas tax strong back fee. Our next divisions are funded out as enterprise funds, which Laura mentioned earlier, similar to traditional business. Here's your fees, cover the cost of providing services. We have water wastewater collections, distribution, solid waste, and stormwater. For the water, wastewater collections and distribution divisions, we've seen a lot of recent state legislation action to improve water quality and enhance treatment capabilities, which have kind of turned into some unfunded mandates. Earlier this year, we kicked off a reclaimed water facility plan to look how we can manage our reclaimed water and move it around the city. It just happened to be that through the legislative process this year, since Senate Bill 64 was signed into law July 1st, which gives us a deadline to submit a report to DEP on how we're going to eliminate or reduce surface water discharges, which was kind of one of our overall goals when we started this process, but now it's in the law that we've got to look at that. Also, we've kicked off wastewater plant capacity expansion and process optimization, which will provide for some enhanced nutrient removal, which will allow us to comply with some basic management action plans in the amount of nutrients that can go into the Lake Apopka, Wakaiwa River spring shed. We are also, part of that reason we kicked off the capacity expansion is our existing flows at the wastewater plant are about 75% of the permitted capacity, which trips the threshold for starting that process of expansion. One of the other things we need to take a look at through this process of design and expansion is an evaluation of our existing water and wastewater rates as an adjustment for, has not been done since 2004. Out of our water division, we included some engineering design to explore a new potable well out of the western storage and pumping facility. Under collections, we've got some lift station rehabilitation and manhole rehabilitation in trunk line A, which is mainly that trunk line that runs all the way down Loudon Creek and terminates at the wastewater plant, along with some slip lining. We're proposing to continue the water meter replacement program, and we're adding a meter reader base station, which will allow those meters to communicate to a central point and ultimately back to the billing purposes. This is an overview, I think, that you've all seen before of the wastewater plant, what we propose it to look like once the expansion is complete. There's some MBR technology, new technology that we're bringing in that will allow us to achieve the aforementioned nutrient removals that are coming down from the state level. And certainly we are relocating the headworks from its existing location to further to the north and closing it to deal with some of the smells that have plagued that area for quite some time. Out of the stormwater fund, last year we approved ordinance 2046, which provided for a fee adjustment initially, and then every October 1st until fiscal year 2025. So this year we'll be moving into the second year of the fee adjustment for a 25% increase. Major projects include the Lakeview Reserve drainage improvements. We'll be doing a presentation after the budget presentation on that. Several stormwater, renewal replacement projects such as Lake Breeze mechanical harvesting. That's going to be contingent upon the county and setting up an MSDU. Westside Townhomes, we've been placing strong emphasis over there to resolve some of the historical drainage problem that exists there. Townhomes of Winter Garden, and certainly this pipe replacement, joint repairs, grouting, slip lining, that often occurs during the rainy season. Solid waste, this is another area of, that we need to evaluate is the rates, as those rates have not been adjusted since 2008. We're dealing with some increasing costs there associated with the disposal fees at the landfill, fuel costs, maintenance costs, with our automated side loaders. Overall, labor costs to operate that equipment is much lower, but what we're seeing is a significant increase in maintenance costs as the vehicle ages and crosses that threshold of 4 or 5 years and beyond. Mainly associated with a lot of the hydraulics and moving parts, pins and bushings, and then that requires a significant amount of downtime, which requires a significant more attention from mechanics. And I think you've heard Frank talk about mechanics. I believe that initially there were 2 mechanics that were proposed. This budget includes a recommendation to hire 1 mechanic, and that's because we believe going forward we'll talk about the lease program will help lower those maintenance costs are where we don't need to have that second person. We're also seeing some increased costs with our carts, and dumpsters. We had as a result of COVID, we had an initial increase of about 50% in raw material metal, to create the dumpsters, and about a 16-week lead time. So we're trying to buy ahead and get them in the pipeline, so we can get them here in the event we need to start replacing, which we often do. The objectives that we looked at for the solid waste fund was analyze a 3-year truck lease. We compared that to purchase and maintenance over that 3-year period versus leasing and maintenance over that 3-year period. We found it to actually be cheaper. And by doing that, what we could do is shift some of our city-owned trucks into a reserve fleet, which would allow us to rely on them when those vehicles are down for maintenance. But we'd also be able to achieve some additional savings through the fund, which from reduced costs, because we rent trucks now when our trucks go down, so it's pretty expensive to rent these trucks. We think long-term, that'll avoid us potentially have to lower the level of service or look at contracting the service out, because we know our service level is far more superior than what is typically offered under our contract situations. In solid waste, we've included a combination grapple solid waste truck. Part of that is we're going to use this as a dual purpose truck so we can establish a collection depot for solid waste in downtown. I think that's something that's been talked about for some time, and we're looking at using a partially semi-underground system. This vehicle has a sealed bid to prevent any leaking leachate when we service this system, and then when we're not servicing it or if we need to, we can put it out for yard waste and picking up bulk items. We've included a request for a flatbed truck and a chassis roll-off system. This is an example of a grapple truck. Obviously, in the end, would not be exactly what you see. It would be interchangeable, to be honest with you. We've also included a graphic of what we're looking at for a partially underground system, along with how that or that system is currently served with the grapple truck. Before we roll this out, we certainly come back to you and do a formal presentation and give you much more details on it. Flatbed truck is a state body truck we use to deliver carts, and if we have some small appliances that we pick up, we'll use that to bring it back. We do have some roll-off dumpsters that we provide service for, so we're proposing to replace that vehicle, and then I've also included a picture of an automated side load truck. And with that, I will turn it back over to the city manager.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
And if I could just to reemphasize in the solid waste, I'm sure you all are familiar with, we have one of the best solid waste services around. You know, whatever you put out there, we get, you call, we come and get it. What we've seen has happened over time. You know, we're going to these much more modern trucks. You know, they have the hydraulics on the side, they lift the cans of hydraulics here. So in the old days, trucks were much simpler. We would hold on to them, buy them, and we could keep them running for 10 years. And as such, they were easier to maintain. These newer trucks, with all the hydraulics, I mean, things go wrong with them all the time. And at that point, that's why it's changing our philosophy, where now it looks like it makes more sense to lease them because they're in better shape. And with a lease of 3 years, after 3 years, you don't even want to keep working on them because they're just way too much downtown. And that's what led us to go to that decision.
I forgot everybody.
I'll just point it to you. Yes.
Just let me know.
Go ahead. Thank you. I was gonna go over just some big item items, you know, some big things that are coming up, as you know, and it was mentioned earlier about the staffing at Tucker Ranch. This project we're going through, I guess it's getting ready to, it's on the agenda tonight to hire someone to move forward to get the engineered plans to build the park. This has been a long, long process. We've worked over this in the process of purchasing land, which we got for a very good price, securing the funding from West Orange Healthcare District, $6 million. We're working on finalizing funding from the 2 hospitals, which will probably come up to about $9 million, but this will be a state-of-the-art park. There's not a park like this anywhere else in the country. It's a health and wellness park. We call it behavioral pharmacy. It'll be unique. We'll have many partners, so this is gonna be a very significant project that'll, once again, put Winter Garden on the map again for another innovative idea, which we believe others will copy us on. As John mentioned, he gave you the time frame on Dillard. Our goal is to move up that time frame. I could feel the reaction of everybody when they saw those dates go, whoa, we keep hearing next month. We're battling the same thing with COVID, with engineers, and everyone is just, anyone that's out there in the business world now will tell you this whole thing is getting to be very tough, and it's a lot to do with labor is a small part of it. Materials is killing us because the companies providing the materials and having issues getting materials, and also these professional firms are all having trouble getting staff, and so everybody's fighting for that limited labor and the limited materials to get projects done. But our goal is to move this up sooner and get it started a bit sooner, and we're gonna work very hard on getting that done. This road is a great road for several reasons, this project. One of the big reasons is, it's a very industrial looking road. It looks a lot like downtown Winter Garden used to look like years ago when you look at all the business on the side and how Winter Garden downtown work is. The government came in, provided government investment. Once you provide the government investment over time, the private investment follows, and you saw the great redevelopment in downtown. We foresee that same thing happening on Dillard Street over a 20-year period. I think you'll see an amazing change with all the businesses and types of businesses. It also, there's this old philosophical divide when you take a look at all the housing on the east side of Dillard Street. Dillard Street becomes like the proverbial railroad tracks where it cuts your city in half. Once you build this road, it's a 2-lane road, it's more a local road. You now join those communities. People can start moving between the communities, and it works to unite the east side of Winter Garden with the rest of Winter Garden, and it also enables for those communities to be connected with golf carts. So this is a major, I think another major project. It's probably one of the most innovative roads in the country. We've had Ian Lockwood work on it, and he's the best road designer in America. And I will tell you another big project. I think these are like our 3 big. There's one more coming up, but this is our East Winter Garden redevelopment. We've been working on this for many years. I think this is the year you're going to see the big things happening. We're working on putting our community-oriented police officers over there. We're going to see this year at the beginning of the redevelopment, bringing in the business community to 10th and Center Street. And by the end of this year, you will be seeing a lot of action, a lot of things happening there, which will be what we call ground central for the beginning of the whole redevelopment. If you go to the community now, you see a lot of things happening, a lot of houses, a lot of improvements, but this is gonna take it to a new level. We're slowly but surely waiting for a call, response back on the annexation, waiting just from their attorneys to okay it, I believe, is the status curve. Once we get that, it'll be brought to this commission. That's why it's not here tonight. And we're also going to be moving forward and going forward, trying to get our CRA extended for an additional 10 years, because that provides a lot of funding for this redevelopment. So that's a big project.
Do we feel strong in this area?
We feel very strong. I've had meetings. I've met with the mayor, I've met with the county mayor, I've met with the commissioners, and I've met with some key staff. So we feel good, but until it's inked, it's not done.
Good to hear that.
Yeah. We've been working on it a long time. I wanted to show you, this is you don't have to try and read all this, but these are our events coming up. Most of this is downtown, but not all of it. A lot of people don't realize the amount of events we do for a small town is amazing. We put on events like big cities put on events. There's a significant number of events, it kind of died off with COVID, but we've been bringing back a lot of events. So this is a lot of work and puts a lot of stress on our staff. I will tell you, our Parks and Rec director sitting out there tonight, she will tell you, we have pushed our staff to the ultimate limit. I mean, it's at the point, when you can push staff so far, get them to do too much, but once they break their back, you start losing it. And we know we're at that point right now on doing these events. They've been very successful, and as we're going to discuss later on tonight, you see we have the Heritage New event, which is sort of bringing back the old music fest. We've modified it, improved it, and so that'll be discussed later. If we go to the next slide, and here's some more of these. So we have numerous events coming up downtown, and this doesn't include all the private events put on by the private vendors that put on events too in downtown. So we're moving forward with that, and I know Mayor, you and I discussed it, you're gonna bring it up when we discuss the events. We also reserved a variety of things happened this year to make changes because of COVID. We do always retain that right later on, because we don't know what the future holds.
I was gonna say, remember, a lot of these events aren't one-day events,
No,
so there's a lot of days a year that our staff got there.
yes, and for our staff, the event isn't the day of the event. And when you talk about Thanksgiving and Christmas, Thanksgiving and Christmas is weeks ahead.
Yep.
It's throughout the entire event, and then it's cleaning up on an ongoing basis. And they work darn hard, I'll tell you, it's amazing.
So would it be shorter just to show the days we're not having events?
It might be, yes.
Probably.
And then another item I wanted to put on here that I think is very important, if I'll go back, is Parks and Recreation. When we looked at our surveys in the past, one of our big goals going forward And I think it's gonna be, I will be, for the future for the city, is to continue on our, in our efforts to expand our green space and parks and recreation in the city of Winter Garden. You know, we not only have Tucker Ranch coming up this year, but we're adding 2 more pocket parks this year. We have the Butterfly Garden Park that'll open up next to the interactive fountain, which will expand that. And we also have the park up there on West Crown Point and Plant Street, which is turning out to be a nice little pocket park. These pocket parks are great. One, they provide nice little parks for wildlife and places for birds and such, but they also provide little respites for people that are walking and such. So the more parks your community have really speaks to the quality of life. And we're looking at other opportunities, because we know we have I think our #1 demand, if I'm not mistaken, is soccer fields. It's just, you name it, we got a demand. I've had people talk to me about soccer fields, baseball, men's softball, golf, frisbee, you name it, there's been a request for it. Swimming pools, huh? Pickleball. Nothing's been requested more often than pickleball. That's because of one persistent gentleman. But, so our demand out there is unbelievable, parks and recreation, but your green space and your parks and recreation define you as a quality community, so we put that down as a big priority going forward. Next item. Downtown, our downtown is doing amazing. I went down today and did a little reconnoitering, talking to people, see what's going on, which I do on a frequent basis, and I talked to an owner of a shop on Main Street. And I know some of you have been here a while, you remember Main Street was always the street where a business would go to die. They would go there, they'd last 2 or 3 years, or not enough walking traffic, and they wouldn't survive. Well, that's changed now. And on Main Street, I discussed it, I think it was Doxology, I ran the owner, and I asked her how it's going, and she told me, well, our business this summer has doubled, is 100% higher than it was from last summer. This year in downtown Winter Garden, we've had no drop off. That's the first time that's happened in 25 years. They're just, all the businesses are unbelievably successful. And just to put some numbers to that, the National Resource Center, they do a survey for us every biannually. They're the largest organization in America that does surveys for cities and counties, et cetera. And when they did the survey, there was 260 cities that answered the survey for the vibrancy of the downtown and commercial areas. Winter Garden was the #1 in the entire country. Not #2, we were #1 in the entire country of surveys, and it speaks to the amazing success we've had in our downtown. Many years ago, we created a marketing image, what we thought downtown should be. We worked hard, all of a sudden everybody up here has worked on it, and it's just been amazingly successful. So I wanted to bring that up, because being #1, you're now in Gator country, so you need to be proud. No,
Almost got this.
yeah, it won't happen. And I just want to go over, just to reiterate some of the items. One last thing, and I'll be finished, is we were discussing the whole issue with, labor and what's going on now in the United States of America. Everybody's reading the articles in the paper about filling jobs and such, and everybody has a theory what's going on. I've heard, was it because the unemployment was out there? Is it because people are afraid of COVID? Is it because people have decided they want to change their careers? There are many opinions as to what's going on, but nobody knows for a fact exactly what's causing it. But we do know for a fact there is an issue with labor. And as Frank was saying, our big focus what we're gonna focus on is career development. And we know we are a great place to work, and we're gonna sell that idea to getting the workers to come to work at Winter Garden. For the young people, you can tell them you have a great pension. Let me tell you, you're under 30 years old, you can care less about a darn pension. I mean, it's a great benefit, you don't get them anymore, but young people don't care. But we also have things such as, you can come to the city of Winter Garden, you come and work with us, you can start with no skills. You can, one, learn a skill and a career that you can work with us all the way. We'll train you, you can get your certificates and work your way through that. But you can also, we pay for your college, and if your master's degree is related to your job, we pay for the master's degree. So you can actually come in here, build a career, get your certificates, but also train if and so indeed at one time you want to go elsewhere if there's nowhere here to go. And I'm comfortable living with that, knowing that we have that system that will attract other people. So one of our primary focuses this year is going to be working on this to differentiate us from everybody else, and that's how we will get the labor, because we're all competing for a shrinking resource, it seems, and I don't know if it's temporary or long-term, but I know what it's like today, and it's pretty tough, and that's going to be one of our biggest focuses in our in our human resources. As Frank said, we do wage studies, we know where we are, we're right up there. We always wanna be in the top of the middle, but we never wanna be the top, so we're never gonna compete with Orlando and Orange County. You know, we've discussed that for 25 years. But you'll find now, and going back to the old management studies, you know, the McGregor, Hertzberg, and all that Maslow stuff, when we always talk about extrinsic and intrinsic values, people now are looking for more than just money. They're looking for that, that intrinsic. What does this bring value to my life? And that's the part we're really focused on as we go forward with the labor force. We did not have a lot of new positions this year. We did have some key ones that were necessary. The chief did have a couple of police officers in there, but we decided to put it off on hold for interim budget because we have open positions. We thought we'd wait to fill positions and see what our need is. If you have open positions and you're working with the labor, it's really hard to determine what your real need is for full-time persons and positions until you fill those other positions. So we're gonna watch that. As you know, with our budget system, we can change that budget anytime this commission. It takes 2 meetings, so if there's such and such time when we get up to the labor, we need it, that we can always come back to this board and say, look, here we are with full-times, we need to take a look at this issue, or to take a look at these positions, because I think it's one of these things we're gonna have to monitor on a going basis and keep doing a better job. I feel very confident we'll get there. And with that, long-winded, I'm finished.
I just one quick question is, if I could.
No, go ahead, I was gonna say, but go ahead, we got one question, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to hear, I know we're coming in about 50,000 people now. We've got all sufficiency. How do we rate when it comes to the number of workers, to all the people, how are we doing fiscally in managing that? And
Are you talking about how do we rate for employees compared to other cities?
We're low.
Yeah, we're actually, probably, there's no other city or county that has a lower, and one of the things we've been very good at is, one of our things we did in management here is, let's take a look at everything we do. Let's get rid of bureaucracy. If we're doing anything that adds no value, get rid of it. So we think we're much more efficient, a lot better than other organizations. Governments tend to go to that old Beaver model where they get too bureaucratic. It takes far too many people to do far too little. And we've been very good at doing a lot of stuff with a lot less people. And that's one of the reasons we're very successful, because that money we're now able to put into projects, building roads, building parks. And I think that's
incredible. I think you're doing an incredible job.
7.30 is,
Yeah.
major on that.
There's other cities that are 11 and 12 but
Yeah.
No,
We're shining.
it's
Nice
a
job.
good job, and they work hard, and they have a good attitude, the part out there. A lot of information, if y'all would be so kind as to, give us this presentation, it's always nice to have it, in format with, the summation as we go through this book. As we've done in the past to cut down on everybody doing questions, I can certainly start, typing up a list. I will give it to Mike, and I can distribute everybody we add to it, so we're not turning into the same questions. But I've been through it, I've started the list, and I'll be glad to distribute it, and then people can add theirs, to it, and we can get answers. But, y'all just sent us this presentation, appreciate that. Any other questions in this? Okay. Thank y'all did a great job.